Submission is a position of the heart. Submission is a perspective. It's a vantage point. It's not just actions. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times when I hear this topic around submission being discussed, a lot of times I hear it just focused on action. Oh, I do this. I cook for my man. I do his laundry. Oh, I, clean the house. I, fold his clothes, whatever it may be. It's very shallow. Very shallow. It's just focused on actions. And while none of those things are wrong, I think all those things are good within context. I think we miss the bigger picture when we simply just look at submission as actions. I do not believe a woman can even really fully understand the power of submission and the power of coming under authority until they have first submitted themselves to God. They have first submitted themselves to a power greater than themselves. And when you take this concept, which is deeply spiritual, I mean, this concept has been going around for thousands of years. You can even find verses in the Bible that talk about this, encouraging women to love their husband, to submit to their husband as they would unto Christ, encouraging husbands to be the head and to take care of their wives. I mean, this stuff can even be traced in the Bible. A lot of times I'll see, women who have been dating for a couple of weeks, or maybe even a couple of months, women who are not married, are not in covenant in any way, shape, or form, are not in like a full committed relationship, talking about submission, and it focuses on actions. But like I said, it misses the larger revelation of what it means to operate from that position, to operate from that spiritual understanding. And I think there is no better way that a woman can truly be submissive and truly operate in a way that's going to honor and respect her man long term if she hasn't first yielded her heart to God. Because this is a concept that is first spiritual, and without that spiritual foundation, it can be applied in a way that is off base. A woman can be submissive on the outward, but inwardly be rebellious. And I've talked to men who have actually been in relationships with these kind of women. Women who on the outward, they may cook and clean and they may do different things. They may try to, do his lunch every day, or they may try to clean the house. But inwardly, they are rebellious. They're not listening to him. They don't really value him. They're resentful. They do all these things, but inside they are resentful, or they wish things were different, or they do those things as a way of manipulation. And here's the thing, when you're submitting, you're not doing these things as a way to manipulate your man. You're not doing these things necessarily because you are expecting him to do something else back to you in return. You are doing these things because you love him, because you are full with the love of God, or because you are committed to that role. Not necessarily because you're hoping that, okay, if I do this, if I do that, then he's going to owe me something back. Totally something different. And sometimes women can use submission as a way to try to control men. They think if I cook and I clean and I provide this, I do this, I do that, then he's going to do this for me. And that might work initially, when you're new in a relationship and emotions are high and the excitement is high and, he's attractive, you're attractive, you guys get along, there's the excitement of a new relationship. That dynamic may actually work. But through the test of time, if it's not based upon something real and if it's not based upon anything substantial, then something will usually falter. You might start to feel resentful if you are submitting to your man, quote unquote, because you want to control him. You might actually start to resent him. He may start to feel that you're trying to control him. You might start to feel that you're manipulative. So this is the primary issue that I had with the clip that I saw that went viral. I think, the overall intention of what she was saying was good, of basically trying to be respectful and being excited about loving your man. I see nothing wrong with that. But I think the concern that I have with that whole conversation is, one, some of the stuff to me just sounded highly unrealistic. Being submissive does not necessarily mean that you are scratching the person's back all the time, packing or unpacking their bag, doing, folding all their clothes all the time, reading their mind. That's not real life. Nobody goes around reading the mind of their spouse all the time. That's not real life. That's the kind of stuff you see in movies. It's the kind of stuff that you see maybe in fairy tales. Most people are not psychic. That's not how life operates. That is not real life. If that was the case, there wouldn't be books like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, where literally married couples are talking about the difficulties that they have in understanding communication in marriage. So it's like, that is not real life. That's a cute concept, and it may actually work for the first couple of months in a relationship, maybe even the first year or so. But let's talk about longevity. This is why I think it's so important that you have elders and you have people who have been married for years and decades leading the conversation when it talks about marriage and when it talks about some of these principles related to marriage: submission, authority, working together, communication. We don't need to have single people leading this conversation. We don't need to have people who are early on in relationships leading this conversation. That's not to say they don't have perspective. They do. That's not to say that they can't have their point of view. They should. And their point of view is valid to a certain extent. But if you haven't been through the mountains and the valleys, if you haven't been through the different seasons of marriage, if you haven't been through the hard times and the fun times, if all you know is the honeymoon phase, then this stuff, the whole idea of submission hasn't even been tested. And so that's why for me, oftentimes when I hear it coming from women who, first of all, a lot of times they're not married, so they're not even in a covenant under God. They're not even under authority of a man, let alone under God. So to me, it's out of order. This is why a lot of the times when I hear this conversation around submission, it's like, I'm unimpressed. I'm unimpressed because I'm like, we're not even listening to this people that we need to be listening to. We need to be turning to our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, our great aunts, the people that have been married for a couple of decades. Okay, let's hear what you have to say about submission. The grandma that's raised a couple of daughters and some sons, they've been married 40, 50 years. You know, for fun, she knits now. She's retiring. She's seeing her grandkids. That's probably who I need to be talking about submission. And so, like I said, this is the primary issue that I have a lot of times, because so many of us, we just don't know. We're in the honeymoon phase. Half the time we're around other single women, or half the time we've come up from broken homes and we didn't see marriages coming up. We're kind of just making this stuff up. We're coming up with ideas of how we think submission should be based upon different stories that we've seen, different television shows, maybe different love songs that we've listened to. We're kind of making up what we think submission should look like. But we're not actually gleaning from different elders, different spiritual leaders, different people who have actually walked the walk. So I think when it comes to this topic of submission, we really need to, at the end of the day, turn to the people who are actually living like it. Being in a relationship with a NFL player, with a quote unquote high value man, that's cool and that's fun. And I'm not saying that she doesn't have perspective to offer, but her advice, again, it must be put within perspective. Am I going to listen to her, who's been in a relationship for maybe a couple of years, dating an NFL player, they're not even married? Or am I going to go maybe look at somebody who's not on YouTube, but who's been in a relationship for a couple of decades, has raised some kids, some grandkids, and has gone through the different seasons of life and knows what it means to submit to a man under God? I'm probably going to choose the latter. And so that's what I would say. I think some of us, in the day, we need to get off of YouTube, or we need to step away from listening to young, cute women who've been in relationships for 2 days and are trying to preach these concepts. And we need to turn to our elders to talk about these things that are, at the end of the day, you only fully understand after walking it out. But that's my perspective. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what you think. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.